Greetings from Podcast Junkies in Boca Raton. I'm Sweiss here with co-host Mons. Mons, how we feeling today? A lot of Boston shit on.
Yeah, I didn't even think of that until you just said it.
Yeah.
We have a lot of Boston going on.
Sox playing well?
Sox are playing very good baseball right now.
And we got the Pats next week. Big
have
home game versus Raiders. We're in football season, guys. But first up, wanted to welcome we will have two guests on. One who you guys know who will be more of a reoccurring, and then my guy, Chris, fellow Syracuse alumni. Chris, welcome to the MVP show. How we feeling today?
Guys, I'm feeling fantastic, man. College football starting tomorrow. Well, officially, I guess, starting tomorrow. I'm excited, man.
Wow, you got the best setup I think we've seen on here, Chris. I mean, I'm not surprised with the new house thing, but goddamn, we've been doing this since January with the guests basically weekly, and I think you have the best setup.
Nah, I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you learned some editing skills over in Newhouse in Syracuse, man, and you put it to use. I'm actually getting a new house and setting up a new studio. So behind me is not a sports book, but make it look good, man. That's what we do, you know?
Awesome, Chris. Well, great to have you on. Probably good to connect. We both went to Syracuse the same year. I know Mons is college dropout over here, doesn't understand the whole Cuse lingo, but is what it is. But Chris, we were talking.
Is he a Theta Chi as well?
No, I don't even know if you were you in a fraternity?
Nah, independent, brother. Independent.
As you should be.
Wow, he hates the fraternities.
As you should. Pay for friendship.
Wow. Okay. All right.
Theta Chi.
All right.
Judaism.
Yeah. All right. Chris, speaking of your betting history, you know, we would love to hear your background. When did you start betting? What made you pursue the handicapping? I know you mentioned starting in Syracuse. That's kind of my story as well. But yeah, would love to hear that to start off here.
Yeah, those are two different questions. When did I start betting and when did I start handicapping? Because I feel like, you know, most of us didn't start as sharps, you know? We started as degenerates. And so I really started out in college, man. We used to do these like 2 or 3 leg NHL parlays. And I just went on a ridiculous tear with a few buddies in college, just ripping off NHL parlays. We had a bookie who was also in college trying to pay for his beer tab, and we were just robbing him basically, going on these NHL parlay tears. And so we ended up getting hit pretty bad with variance when we got a little more greedy about it, and so we stopped for a while. And then I ended up graduating, doing sports anchoring and sports reporting, and then I wanted to be able to talk about sports full time, and the best way to do that was in the betting sphere. So I moved out to Vegas, learned how to be a handicapper, and ended up doing this in social media and everything so that I could talk full time about sports betting. And so kind of went from being a degenerate to waging a war on degeneracy, if you will.
Yeah. No, we kind of similar, I guess, backgrounds of this. I don't know what year you exactly started, but I remember a couple years ago seeing you on TikTok. We had talked offline about both seeing each other. And now there's an influx of handicappers in the space. So it's good to be with one of the OGs, I would consider you, that we've talked to here. Going off of your betting history, Chris, would love to hear, we do this every week with our guests, you know, what's the craziest parlay or bet that you've hit and your worst beat? I know there's probably a ton over the years, but what are 2 that come to mind? Maybe some football ones with the season, you know, starting up this weekend and next week.
Yeah, craziest bet. I'll break it up. I'll do my craziest bet, and then I'll throw it back to you guys, and then I'll do my worst beat. But craziest bet was actually right after I got to Vegas. I moved to Vegas in October of 2022, and I loved college football. I still love college football. I took Houston-Memphis over. It was on a Friday night. Total was at 57.5. I didn't understand closing line value yet. I got it late at 58. These guys had 27 points going into the fourth quarter. I need 58. Dead in the water, right? 2 straight 2-minute touchdowns, because it's Memphis and Houston. 2 straight 2-minute touchdowns, long field goal drive, kickoff return touchdown, and we get another field goal, gets us to 51 points, right? We got like a few minutes to go in the game. We're thinking, you know, we need a touchdown, right? Houston drives the field in 3 minutes, gets us to 58 to make it a 6-point game, recovers their onside kick, drives down the field in 51 seconds, walks it off with a touchdown to get us over 38 points in the fourth quarter. And that was like a week after I moved to Vegas. I was hooked, dudes. Like, I was absolutely hooked. I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. I love sports betting so much. Yeah, it was just a random Friday night, and it was the greatest sweat that I think I've still ever had.
If I was on the under, I would have been sick to my stomach. Right? 38 fourth quarter points, you said?
38 fourth quarter points.
I would have been
wild.
sick. I mean,
Yeah,
well, that
no
was
punts,
I mean,
nothing like
it
that.
wasn't
It was
38, but what was just I mean, I don't want to dive into it yet, but Iowa State, Kansas State, that fourth quarter was
Oh, yeah.
that under looked beautiful. And next thing you
And
know,
then they're kneeling at the end. I'm
oh,
watching at a bar without
that
sound at
saved
the
me.
end. I was like, what
I
the
needed
fuck?
the under, so that saved me.
I thought you took a parlay.
Yeah, with the under.
Dude, that over was an atrocious beat.
Oh, yeah.
Guys, forearm goes down at the half-yard line and they kneel it 3
No,
times.
you know what the real bad beat was? I was going to dive into it later, but I sent down Dylan Edwards over rushing yards. The guy, a fucking muff punt. Did you see that shit?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, he muffs the
FanDuel,
punt, gets injured and doesn't come back.
FanDuel and those sites, the DraftKings, they voided it, but the offshores didn't. So some of the clients, I had to make sure, I get you some free play or whatever, because that was my bad. So yeah, that was tough there. But Chris, going off of that, I know you have a big community in the Covers Club. What are your top tips for them, whether it be the new bettors or guys that have been there in a while? Like, what do you suggest to your community for being a profitable sports bettor?
Yeah, I've actually developed over the last few years. I've gone from hating parlays to being like, oh, this is where you got to do it. And now I've kind of streamlined it into 3 key tips.
All right.
And it boils down to 3 words, actually: discipline, patience, and independence. So discipline, especially in your losses. I got to tell guys, dude, I hit it about 58 to 60%, which is really good. And I try to keep it between, minus 150 favorites to anywhere between plus 150 to 200 underdogs is kind of those are kind of my borders. So hitting at 58 to 60% is profitable for me, but you have to be disciplined in your losses, and you sometimes have to be okay with losing. Like, if you go to bed after a losing day and you haven't chased it, that means you haven't made your losses worse. So discipline, almost as important as picks, really is such an important trait to create and to develop in this industry, because if you don't have discipline, you're chasing your losses, you're going to make them a lot worse. Patience, no parlays, no big, mountainous parlays. Build the mountains slowly. Be okay with single bets. Be okay with, starting out as a $10 bettor. I started out in 2022 as a $10 unit bettor. I won't talk about my unit size now, but it ain't $10 anymore. And I couldn't have done that if I wasn't building it up over time. And then you look back and you see how much you won. So patience, independence. Independence is the last one. Is, the games you bet on and the games you find value on aren't necessarily going to be the games that you really want to watch. We'll talk about big games later this weekend, but games like Houston and Memphis might have more value than the Big Ten or the Power 4 games. And so, games that you find value in might not always be the games you want to watch. And sometimes independence means staying away from the games that you want to watch and just watch them just to have fun, rather than put a bet on a way oversaturated market.
Yeah, no, that was great advice. For us, early, like this past week, Billy, who we're going to have on the second half, kind of our college football expert, his play of the week was Hawaii money line, not something from the Iowa State Kansas State game, and that cashed. But again, it wasn't the prime, most heavily bet on game. So we got to think who's going to the sports book and kind of going there. Like, what is the average Joe doing? In my opinion, I always thought of Mons when average Joe guy going to the book, blue collar guy going to go place a bet. What are they betting? Overs and favorites and the primetime matchup. So you're right, Chris. I won't even send out like a Monday Night Football play, a high unit one if I don't see the value. Because if that game for me was at 1:00 on a Sunday, would I still send that out? So that's what I like to tell my audience and subscribers there. The last question, Chris, for you before we dive into the college slate, which I know that might bleed into this question a little bit, but what's your favorite sport to bet on, but also what's been your most profitable sport to bet on?
Same answer, college football.
Okay.
I covered college football for a long time. My favorite sport and my most profitable sport is college football. And it's funny, my favorite play last week was the UNLV Idaho State over, because I loved Idaho State's pass offense. Who the hell's betting on Idaho State, I love the over. I love their pass game. I love UNLV's run game. I hated both defenses, and that ended up hitting, obviously. But finding value in the the group of fives rather than the power fours, it has just been such a cash cow for me and has been such a way for me to earn, a ton of money over the years. I was an award-winning sports anchor and reporter in college football, so I've been on the field, I've been in the locker rooms, and that knowledge and kind of knowing the game from that level and taking it to what I'm doing now has really helped kind of combine a system that's both subjective and objective. And it's just been really profitable for me. And I just love college football, man. So it's fun to bet on and it's fun to win money.
Yeah. Have you, Chris? I know the sharps definitely are big with the college football and basketball with the totals, the over-unders, especially moving those lines. What's your opinion of kind of that market with the college football?
Yeah, it's interesting because college football is one of the most really complete markets that you can have. You have the oversaturated, really efficient market of the Power Four teams and the Power Four games. We're going to talk about a bunch of them with the top 10 matchups we have this week. But then you also have, really soft markets and soft games like tomorrow. I love the, Boise State USF game tomorrow. No, there's not going to be that really sharp of a market on it. So you can find, if you're a plus EV better, like we talk about, you can find good value and good value versus the expected value you find in those games in college football. So it really is a sport for everybody because you could be a square and buy into a really oversaturated and efficient market, or you can jump on the group of five teams like I loved North Texas overs last year was easy money because they only played offense and no defense. And I don't know if you got any listeners betting on North Texas with me, man. I love it, but I can't imagine there are many of them.
Hey, I'll keep that in mind here. But diving in because we've been all summer not talking about actual games because we focus on football and basketball here at the MVP show. I know Mons is going to be happy to actually talk real games this week. We did a little last week, but all the big boys are playing this week. Chris, I know you're a college football expert, and we're going to bring on Billy as well to talk college. But first big game I'm kind of looking at here would be the Friday night game. My birthday is Friday, turning the big 3-1 here, getting old, I guess.
It's not a big 3-1.
Is it not?
No, it was the big 3-0.
All right, whatever. Chris, what are your thoughts on this Baylor-Auburn game? Vic's laughing. What do you think, Chris? Baylor-Auburn, what are your thoughts?
I gotta go Baylor. I think they're gonna both cover and win. I think if Dawson Pendergrass was healthy and he's out for the season, I think this would be maybe even Baylor being favored. But Bryson Washington, 1,000-yard rusher last year, 12 touchdowns in that 6-game run they went on. He looked fantastic. Sawyer Robertson, I think one of the better quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year coming up. Hugh Freeze on the other side said Auburn might play all three of their quarterbacks. They got that 5-star.
I did see that. Have you heard about this?
Right?
No.
They're going to play three quarterbacks.
I love
they
it.
want to play three quarterbacks. Dude,
I think it's fucking crazy.
No quarterbacks, in my opinion. So I like Baylor to cover and win. I obviously the defense is a little bit of a wash. I like Baylor's defense, but I really think the offense for Baylor is going to be a focal point this season. I think it's a lot better this year, even than last year. I think they're going to take a lot of that momentum from that 6-game win streak they had last year and transfer it into this year. And I like this offense a lot. And I like Jackson Arnold. I like Ashton Daniels. I haven't seen Deuce Knight yet, but if Auburn really is going to be continuing their quarterback conversation to a game like this, you're looking way past a very talented team in Baylor. I don't think you can do that.
Baylor, yeah, I was reading about Baylor a little bit more because I'm definitely more of an NFL guy myself. Our college football guy's coming on later, but Sawyer Robinson, he airs it out. 35 passes a game over their last 9. He was definitely airing it out there. And speaking of Auburn, Chris, were you able to catch, based off your broadcast career, the SEC show? And just wanted to get your thoughts real quick on Netflix.
Yeah, Auburn's. Yeah. I've watched a little bit of it. Not enough really to generate an opinion. I really just have it on kind of in the background during the day. I just love hearing people talk about football that aren't on ESPN. To be honest with you, so not enough to generate an opinion. But I do want to watch it more in depth, and the Chiefs show as well. I want to watch that Kingdom show as well. I love those deep dives.
And the Cowboys show. I started the first episode last night. It was great.
I'm an Eagles fan, so I don't know about that.
Oh God. Oh yeah, we talked about this.
I'll probably at some point, especially if they don't re-sign Micah Parsons, I'll dive in and grab my popcorn and laugh.
Yeah, we'll see about that. Next game, Mons over here has got some merch. He's a big Alabama fan, just SEC guy, playing Florida State, who was a disaster, to put it bluntly, last year. I'm looking at the under for this game, Chris. The Crimson Tide last year in terms of the top 5 in EPA margin, ninth in defensive success rate. A lot of guys back. Obviously, they have Ryan Williams, a superstar wide receiver there. But what are and a different quarterback there? But what are your thoughts on Alabama and this Florida State team?
Yeah, I'll start on the Florida State side. They bring in Tommy Castellanos. He was at Boston College last year. Learned under Bill O'Brien, which I love. I love that for a young quarterback. He was clowning Alabama a ton this offseason, man. He's ready to go. But I like that FSU really went through the transfer portal, really attacked their weak spots. I think this is looking like a different team than last year, than the team that I faded in week 1 last year when Georgia Tech beat them. I had Georgia Tech money line, man. I was loving that game. I was loving that doubling game. But look, Ty Simpson's got a lot of pressure, man. You're following some really solid NFL caliber quarterbacks, and you have a lot of pressure because now you have one of the best wide receivers in the country, Ryan Williams. I don't know if I put him up there with Jeremiah Smith just yet, but he looks fantastic and he looks the part. And so I think FSU can cover. I think the spread is a little bit too big. But I do think Alabama is going to outclass them, and I think Florida State's going to have a better year than last year. It's hard to have a worse one, but I think Alabama is going to outclass them and win pretty easily.
Is that spread still 13.5? Obviously, Bama's way.
Yeah, 13.5. I think if you're taking FSU, I would buy it up to 14.5 and be really careful because Alabama keeps their foot on the pedal. DeBoer loves to keep his foot on the pedal, and so I would say if you're taking FSU, I would buy that extra point and try to get past that key number of 14. But it's not going to be easy to stay in late, man. I think Alabama is going to really attack this FSU secondary.
Yeah, no, I mean Kalen DeBoer absolutely has something to prove this year. After definitely, I mean. Like if that was my first year as a head coach, I would definitely be happy with it. Or head coach for Bama, I'd be happy with it. But for Bama standards, he's got something to prove for sure. What are you going to be on for FSU, Bama, or are you staying away?
I think I might lean. I might wait until halftime. I'm going to stay away from a pregame bet. And if I think I'm really liking how the offenses are looking, and if I think FSU looks outmatched on defense, I'll make an in-game. But probably stay away from this one for now, just with all the question marks on both sides and all the new guys. I like Tommy Castellanos a lot, and maybe I'll take Florida State to cover in the first half because I think he can do something in the first half here. But I really don't think this is one that Florida State handles them for the full game. I think Alabama can pull away late.
All right, I'm excited for that one. The game I think everyone's most excited for this week would be the rematch from the college football playoff, Texas-Ohio State. A lot of turnover, but also a lot of guys returning for both teams as well. Seems like Ohio State, for me, has the edge at the skill positions, but the Texas has that great front seven, and then Arch Manning starting. So, Chris, what do you think of this game? Obviously, both teams lost a lot to the NFL draft, but big-time matchup in Columbus. I'm fucking pumped for this. Big noon kickoff. What do you think, Chris?
Yeah, I think the biggest key of this game is that Texas defense, man, returning 7 starters from a defense that was 3rd best in the nation, 15 points per game. My biggest concern for Texas is that O-line. 4 new offensive linemen. I know they were all top 100 recruits, so that's huge, but that's definitely the biggest question mark, as well as, Arch Manning has all the hype in the world. We haven't really seen a ton out of him yet. And this is easily the biggest game he's played in so far. And so, how are 4 new offensive linemen and a basically brand new quarterback going to play in the shoe, man? It's not going to be easy. But I think the key matchup really is that Texas defense returning all those starters against Julian Sayin in his first start ever. Yeah, we all seen the stat. First starters against the number 1 team are 0-18 over the last 20 years. I don't really care about those trends. That wasn't Ohio State, Texas. I don't really care about that trend. If Sayin can get the ball to Jeremiah Smith and they can somehow find Smith in that Texas secondary, it won't be easy, but that's going to be the key because Jeremiah Smith, no matter what field he's on this year, will be the best player on the field. He should be. It's
crazy that he's going to play again next year. He has to come back.
It's insane. It is insane. He should be back-to-back Heisman winner. I really think that highly of this kid. I really think this kid can be a back-to-back Heisman winner if Sayin can get him the dang ball. But the big question is going to be, can they get the ball to Jeremiah Smith with how much attention is going to be on him and this Texas defense that was just suffocating last year? I'm not and also let's remember there are two new coordinators in Columbus as well. I think it's what is it, Brian Hartline taking over for Chip Kelly, and then they lose Jim Knowles to Penn State.
Yeah.
That's the biggest question to me is losing Jim Knowles. He is my favorite defensive coordinator, maybe in college and NFL. I worked with him when he was at Ohio State, man. Oklahoma State. I have more respect for him than almost any coach or coordinator. He is an absolute genius. Could have been like a brain.
That is very insightful. You wouldn't just get that on the internet. So I appreciate you, Chris, sharing that. The primetime game that night, we got two quarterbacks. Monty probably aware of Cade Klubnik and Nussmeier from the show there. But Brian Kelly, he's lost 5 straight openers, and LSU Clemson at night. What are you thinking, Chris?
LSU Clemson, it's tough, man. I mean, 5 new starters on the LSU offensive line against this Clemson defense that really the defensive line is one of the best in the nation. TJ Parker, 11 sacks last year. Man, this dude is an animal. I think this thing could turn into a bit of an offensive showcase. You have 2 potential Heisman candidates in Nussmeier and Cade Klubnik going against each other. It's going to be, it's going to be tough because LSU couldn't really generate interceptions this year, and this Clemson offense is only looking better and only getting more experienced. And I think Cade Klubnik is really putting it together this year. I see a lot of scoring potentially in this game. I think Clemson is just going to pull away at the end there. I know LSU has a couple new transfers in the defensive secondary. That'll be important, but I don't know if it's going to be enough against this Clemson offense. I think we will see an offensive showcase with Nussmeier throwing for 300 yards, Klubnik throwing for a ton of yards as well, and them getting the ground game as well. So I like an over, but I also like Clemson to cover, even though it's 3.5. That hook is baiting me, but I'm going to take it minus 3.5 for Clemson. I think this is going to be a great game, though.
Well, I've taken the hook. Hopefully we get some points Saturday night shootout there. I've been just following college more than I ever have, and it seems like Clemson's defensive front is fantastic there, so that should be an interesting battle. What are your thoughts on their defensive line and front there, Chris?
Yeah, I already touched on TJ Parker, obviously. He's an absolute stud. He's a guy that I want the Eagles to go after in the draft at some point. But here's my big thing, man. Neither of these two teams have been remotely good in openers in the last couple years. So who's going to show up? And this defensive line for Clemson is genuinely one of the best in the nation, bar none. And now you're going against LSU and 5 new starters on this offensive line. Dude, that's scary. That's scary. So I think the Clemson defensive line at some point in this game is going to win battles, and they are going to end up. They're going to end up in that backfield, and Nussmeier is going to be under pressure. And for a guy that threw double-digit interceptions last year, that's not fantastic. That type of pressure doesn't bode well.
Gotcha. Appreciate the analysis there, Chris. Last game on the slate before we wrap up. Sunday night here in South Florida, where Matt and I live. Miami, Notre Dame. Miami with the new Cam Ward, first pick in the draft. Carson Beck now coming in. Crystal Ball's been an interesting coach over the years here. And then that Fighting Irish in their run game there. What are your thoughts on this game, Chris?
Yeah, obviously a lot of focus is going to be on the quarterback position. You have Carson Beck over in Miami, CJ Carr now coming in for Notre Dame. You know what you're getting with Beck. You don't know what you're getting with Carr. You have my favorite running back and maybe the best running back in the nation in Jeremiah Love in this game for Notre Dame, and that fantastic offensive line as well. One of the best offensive lines in the country for Notre Dame. I think that's going to be key. Miami's defensive secondary overhauled. They should be better this year. I don't know how they're going to fare against CJ Carr. We don't know if he's going to throw a ton because of the success that Notre Dame generates on the ground with Jeremiah Love. So I think Notre Dame should be able to control the pace of this game. I do like I liked Damian Martinez last year for Miami. He's now in the NFL. Now you get Mark Fletcher kind of stepping into that key role, that starting running back role for Miami. I don't think it's going to be enough to overcome Notre Dame in that offense, though. I don't love the over in this game because I think that it's going to be kind of decided in the ground games, and I think Notre Dame bleeds clock with the best of them. So I'm going to lean Notre Dame slightly, but I think a better play in this game is the under because I think establishing the run game is going to be key in this one.
Awesome. Yeah, this will be a good one. I'm glad they made such a great slate for college. Chris, love the knowledge with the college football there. But wrapping up here, Chris, where can the people who are watching the show find you on social media? And any other thoughts you have to close out?
Yeah, if you guys are on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, anything, hell, Facebook, I'm at Covers Club Chris. The Covers Club, the logo you have up here, is our, that's our club, that's our Discord. We have the free side of the Discord. Join at any point. It's links in my bio on any social media platforms. But find me at Covers Club Chris. DM me, man. This is my full-time job. Let me know you heard the podcast and say, hey, I loved you. I hated you. You didn't tell me anything. I don't really care. Just hit me up and let me know you heard me on the podcast, and I'll be happy to chat with you and talk ball with you and get you some winners.
Awesome. Love it. We're excited for a great college slate. Chris, that was awesome. Loved your college insights, and great to have another fellow Syracuse grad on after we had Thomas on a few weeks ago. So take care, and let's cash some tickets this weekend.
Let's do it, guys. Good luck out there this weekend, guys. I appreciate y'all having me on.
All right, Chris. Thanks, brother.